YouTube world? My name is Nicholas Montez, and you're watching my YouTube channel, Nicholas Montez. Welcome back to another YouTube channel video, everybody. I'm so excited to have you all back here together again. And today, we're making another YouTube video. I know I just posted a couple minutes ago of my top 5 favorite comic book references in the MCU, but I want to do another movie video where I'm talking about my top 5 least favorite movies of all time. And I say least because, to be honest, I love most movies, and I don't really hate any of them. Granted, there's movies I give F's to, but I wouldn't say that they're like my least favorite films of all time, so that's kind of what I would suggest. But with that said, let's just get started with the list. Now, don't get me wrong, I do not give Thor the Dark World a F. I do give Thor the Dark World like a D+ or something like that, because on the negatives, the tone is very all over the place. It shifts from like this Asgardian story, from this mythical Asgardian story to down to earth humor to like it's all over the place. You don't really know what type of movie it's trying to be. And really, some of the humor doesn't really land. Our villain Malekith, scheme is not very interesting. He's not very interesting at all. His plan to do all these worlds, like even though the backstory of the movie, like when they do the Dark Elf and Asgardian War, like that's a cool scene, but it doesn't really understand what the movie's trying to do, so it's pretty forgettable. And the worst part about it is that once Loki comes on screen, it's great. But when he's not on screen, it's bad. And then when we get to the third act, of course it's cool when, as you see Thor and Malekith going through different portals and he's trying to get Mjolnir back, but it keeps disappearing and stuff like that. Now, that's cool, but you don't really understand why they're trying to stop it. And also, there's not really many stakes in the film, other than Thor's mom dying. But even though this is one of my least favorite movies of all time, it still has that MCU stuff that you like, whether it's the Thor act, the Asgardian action, the world of Asgard. It has a couple things you like, but not much of it, so that's why it's my least favorite film of the MCU, and one of my least favorite films of all time. So back in late summer of 2019, I started to watch the Fast and Furious franchise because I was just very interested into it. I wanted to see, because I want to get prepared for Hobbs and Shaw that came out, because it was coming out in late summer of 2019, August 2nd, and I finished watching the first one, and I thought it was pretty good, and I was kind of excited for this one. And this film just disappointed me so much. The story was very bad. It didn't really have any of the characters, such as Dom in the movie. And you don't really understand what's going on. It just has all these weird plot lines. And overall, it was kind of boring to me, so that's kind of why I put it on the list. But there's a couple things that I do like about it, is that the characters, Tej and Roman Pierce, I actually like how they come back in the franchise, but overall, this is my least favorite film of the entire franchise. Alright, now the Suicide Squad, this is a movie that, like Thor the Dark World and Iron Man 2, I technically gave them D+ because of their backgrounds. Because, like Iron Man 2, the reason why everybody hates it is because Jon Favreau only had 2 years to make it because they wanted to do it with the Avengers. So the Dark World, it has some production troubles, but it's not as big as as Iron Man 2. The Suicide Squad has some of the same troubles as Iron Man 2, but at the same time, it doesn't really fix anything for me, and I don't really think it messes up. I think it's definitely bad. And the reason for that is because really just the villain. I thought that the villain was just bad. Her motivation isn't really cool, and she literally turns a normal person into her brother, and it doesn't really make any sense. Likewise, it's also pretty predictable with the supervillain stuff, and also I've never really understood like the whole plot of what the Suicide Squad are. Of course, the characters are interesting, but they're not. I don't understand why they have to do a good deed when they're supervillains. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. So that's kind of one that kind of puts it down for me. And also, there's just a lot of weird stuff with everybody, and like the story does not make sense to me. So overall, it's easily one of the worst comic book films of all time. Well, not one of the worst comic book movies of all time, but not my favorite. But I mean, it's still watchable though. Now, this is actually my least favorite Disney animation film of all time. Like, this is just a very bad film, though. Now, when I watched it the first time, I was like, oh, so we're going to be going into South American stuff and learning about all these stories. But then, it just did not make sense. It tries to be this documentary, this animation documentary that does not work for me. And they try to do all these stories, and it just does not make sense to me of why we're doing this. It definitely makes sense because the wartime era is basically films that the government wanted Walt to make films that related to the war or something like that to South Americans and people. And this movie just did not do well for me. It's easily one of the worst films that I've seen all year. Well, I saw it last year when I was doing my whole Disney Plus series. If you are an early subscriber of my channel, so easily this is my least favorite Disney animation film. And granted, it probably does have some good setups for the Three Caballeros, but that's really it. So overall, this is one of my least favorite films of all time. Okay, so if you've watched my review for The Road to El Dorado this year, you know that I'm not that positive on it. And that's because I hate this movie with a passion. I was very disappointed with this movie. Now, the animation and the music is of course really good, but everything else is just terrible. The characters, I don't really root for. I don't really like them. The story is pretty bad. You don't really understand why they want to go to this land of gold. The villain here is terrible. And the movie just feels like it's too long, and I don't like it. And with the side characters, it just makes the movie even more longer. So it's just terrible to me. So that's why it's also my least favorite DreamWorks film of all time. Like, forget Ants. Like, this is my least favorite DreamWorks film, but still, it's easily one of my least favorite films of all time, and that's why I hate it so much. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. My Instagram name is Marvel6, and my TikTok name is Marvel1Fan. If you guys don't understand those names, head to my about section so you can follow me on those social medias. I'm also on Letterboxd, so you can follow me on that. It's the same as my Instagram, Marvel6, Marvel_6_. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.